Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to your Trump update. I'm going to start calling this the Trump date. Ding, 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 ding. This just in. We're winning. Hello, we're winning. This is one of the most optimistic times to be a constitutionalist right now. The things that Donald Trump and Doge and the Republicans in Congress are making happen in the last couple of months are mind-boggling and very optimistic. It's hard not to get excited about how much we're winning, right? But newsflash, for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So we're going to talk in this video about the Democrat and the Democrat voters and leaders and their reaction to our winning and everything that's happened in the last few months. And how I believe, unfortunately, that we may be closer to a actual civil war or revolution in this country than we ever have been. And that flies in the face of how many of us are feeling we're so optimistic. But I'm afraid it's a bit of false hope, and we will talk about that along with other things. But first, I want to thank all of you who support the channel. You know, this channel's funded by viewers like you. If you find these videos to be interesting, entertaining, enlightening, educational, or just funny, please consider being a financial supporter. I'm just a voice crying in the wilderness, and it's your donations through the links in the description below to keep the lights on here in the cabin and keep these videos coming your way. So Donald Trump spoke to a joint session of the Congress last night, and there was quite a spectacle there. That there was a open resistance to Donald Trump. Hey, I'm used to him not clapping and sitting, you know, the up and down. One side stands up and claps, and the other one sits down. And then, you know, next time if it's their guy, it's the reverse. But they took it to a new level last night during Donald Trump's speech. He was heckled. They held up signs calling him a liar. And one congressman from Texas, Al Green in particular, he heckled Donald Trump. And it's not that Al Green. It's not Al Green, the soul singer. It's not, you make me feel so brand new. And I want to live my life with you. No, not that Al Green. If you like the singing, leave me a tip. No, the Texas congressman who's trying to impeach Donald Trump stood up wielding a cane and heckled him and shouted over him at the very beginning of his speech. And the Speaker of the House hammered down the gavel and warned him twice before the third time he was forcibly removed by the Sergeant of Arms and taken off of the congressional floor. And I really think that in the midst of all of this winning, of us seeing what Doge is doing, and I could just go down the laundry list. He did a great job last night. At least the first hour of his speech was just taking a victory lap on all of these things that he's accomplished. But we are sadly mistaken if we believe that the hardcore left has stood down, that they're rolling over, that they're giving up. In fact, I would say they're arming up. I would say they're ramping up. And I expect this summer to be the summer of protests. I expect Antifa and some remnants of Black Lives Matter and this new kind of threat to our democracy, these transgender militant activists, to take to the streets this summer. Could we see a summer of burning buildings, of riots, of looting? Well, if their congressman is willing to engage in civil disobedience and, quite frankly, shame the entire Democrat Party and what he did there, if he's willing to do that, if Oregon congresswomen are willing to get up in the middle of his speech and huff and walk in a huff and walk out on him and make a public display, then what is the Antifa member going to do? What is the trans activist going to do? What is the BLM rioter going to do? What are these communist activists going to do? Well, we're already starting to see mass protests in Portland. And I will tell you this, that in a lot of these cities, and it's just by nature of the beast, I suppose, that these leftist rioters and protesters, they tend to prefer the warmer months. You don't see them out there in the freezing cold demonstrating. You don't see them out there in the rain demonstrating. That they like sunny weather, and sunny weather is coming for a lot of these major northern cities. So I expect there to be a flash up of violence, a flash up of protests. I expect this to happen, even though it seems like they lost about 20% or 30% of their voter base to common sense. And just so that you understand, common sense to us, to a person on the opposite side of the political spectrum, would say that my common sense, like something like there's only two genders, that seems like common sense. There's men and women and nothing else. They would claim that that's not common sense. That's me marginalizing and denying the and not allowing certain people to exist. Like they would see that as literally an act of violence just to proclaim that there's two genders. So we are so far apart from some of the progressive wing of the Democrat Party that, and they are so brainwashed, not just about Donald Trump, but about the policies themselves. What we call common sense, they consider to be an act of aggression by an oppressor. And I wish I could give you an answer on how we bring them around to common sense, but I think that ship has sailed. The bottom line is there is a brainwashing machine in our United States. It works through social media. It works through mainstream media. It works through personalities and talk shows, both late night and afternoon. And it's a machine that 20 to 30% of the population is deeply plugged into. And as long as that disinformation, those lies, right, those attacks against common sense continue to be dripped directly into the vein of these 20 to 30% of the population, they're going to continue to have an unnatural, skewed vision of the world. And we are approaching the point of irreconcilable differences. And, you know, to give you an example, there was a poll, and they were asked what they thought about the Al Green display, not the singing star, the other one, what they thought of his disruption of Trump's speech. 80% of the viewers said it was unacceptable. 20% said, yeah, right on. He should have done that. That's totally acceptable, what Al Green did in disrupting Donald Trump's speech and basically engaging in civil disobedience. So 20% of the viewers. Now, you might think that's great because we used to be 50-50. Now we're 80-20. But that's not very accurate when you dig into the numbers, because of the viewers who watched Donald Trump's speech, see, not everybody watched, and the people that polled were watchers. So of the people that were watching, 80% were Republican and only 20% were Democrat. So all of the Democrat watchers were 100% behind what Congressman Al Green did last night. They were totally fine with the leftist not even being, the Democrats not even being able to cheer for Donald Trump making a boy with brain cancer an honorary Secret Service agent. They couldn't even clap for that. They couldn't even clap when Donald Trump took a victory lap for getting released from a Russian gulag, a journalist who made it home in time to spend the last few years with his 95-year-old mother who was there. They couldn't even applaud Donald Trump getting somebody out of a Russian prison. They couldn't even applaud for Donald Trump declaring war on the Mexican drug cartel that is the most violent, evil, and oppressive force in the criminal world. They couldn't clap for that. What did they clap for? They clapped for when Donald Trump said that Biden had spent $180 billion on this non-winnable war in the Ukraine. Then they clapped. They all clapped for that. And Pocahontas herself continued clapping, disrupting Donald Trump's speech until he said, what, do you want this war for another 5 years? And she went, yeah, we do. We want war in Ukraine for another 5 years. These warmongering I guess it's a Democrat's version of a rhino, right? Uh, like Elizabeth Warren. These people want this Ukraine, and there's Republicans that feel that way too. But they clapped for us giving away billions of dollars so Ukrainian businessmen can build new mansions and drive around in Mercedes Benz, right? And they can't clap for a high school senior from California who always wanted to follow in the family footsteps and become a military man, who managed to graduate a California high school with 6 sport letters, right, and a 4.46 grade point average, which makes him a catch for any college with scholastics like that. How he managed that out of a California school is beyond me. That takes some doing, right? And he got accepted to West Point. He was there with his mother, who raised him, and the Democrats can't even clap for him. They can only clap for war. That's the problem. That 20% want war. That 20% that thought that Al Green's display was okay, they want war. They want war in Ukraine. They want war with Russia. And they want war with Donald Trump and all of his followers. You see, sometimes when it looks like you're winning, it's just the calm before the storm. Newton's third law: for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. We haven't got the reaction from the Democrats yet, but you're starting to hear the rumblings. You're hearing senators and congressmen on that side using their dog whistles, their coded language, to encourage people to hit the streets, to take up arms against the government, to act in civil disobedience, to riot, to become violent, right? And that in the midst of some really great things that all of us constitutionalists are rightfully jazzed up about, in the middle of that is this 20% that think we're all the devil. This 20% that thinks everything Donald Trump does is evil. This 20% that wants to violate your First Amendment right and force you to call somebody by their preferred pronoun, or lose your job, or in some cases go to jail, right? These are the people that want to have guns for themselves, but they don't want you to have them, right? These people who are pro-government when their person is in charge and anti-government when he's not, that these people are violent-minded. Now, I'm not saying they're necessarily violent capable. You know, a little boy might be violent-minded, but he's not very capable, right? So I don't know how well they can pull it off, but I think there's brewing within the Democrat Party, within the brainwashed 20% that thought that was okay. Maybe that's all the Democrats, at least 20% of them. You know, there's a few that are coming to their senses. Bill Maher is proclaiming common sense, much to the chagrin of most of his colleagues. John Fetterman, yes, Lurch himself, the basketball shorts wearing Bigfoot. That's a weird guy. But, you know, he's talking common sense to some degree lately. And he's calling out their side for their vitriol and their gaslighting and, quite frankly, their deception of the American people. And he's in a lot of heat just for saying Donald Trump's ideas aren't that far off base, right? So there is some hope within that party. But I think people like that will end up joining us like Tulsi Gabbard did, like RFK Jr. did. They'll be forced out of their party because the psychotic, warmongering, violent-minded, if not violent capable, at least violent-minded people have swallowed some master brainwashing by the powers that be through The View, late-night comedians, talk shows, the news, social media, where they're just plugged into this doom scrolling, where they're just looking for stuff to get angry about on their phone 24/7, that they are so brainwashed by this technology and the use of it that they can't see common sense. Common sense to them is the enemy. All of us who speak common sense, all of us who say there really is only two genders, and no, freedom of speech says I can call you ma'am or sir or basketball wearing Sasquatch Lurch if I want to. right? Lots of people call me that blind old fisherman. Okay, well, whatever. I am kind of going blind. I won't lie about that. Lord help me. My daddy was blind and my mama was deaf. It don't look good for me. Y'all better learn to read Braille. So we have free speech to refer to people as we want to, but that really bothers at least 20% of this country. They definitely can dish it out, but they can't take it. So are we heading once again towards the inevitable civil war? I think this summer will tell the tale. I don't expect these people to just roll over and change their way of thinking. I think the brainwashing is so deep we can't ever convince them of our common sense. Common sense has left the reservation for these people and it's never coming back. And, you know, people involved in the militia movement and the gun movement, we have something we refer to as the 3%. And this is a reference to the concept that the Revolutionary War was fought by 3% of the American colonists. And it only takes a small, determined group to engage in a revolution and change a government. And, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. They have 20%. If just 3% of the people that hate Donald Trump were to take up arms against our government and form some kind of well thought out revolution, it could be successful. And even worse than that, it could be a quagmire, a never ending war, a drain on everything in America, a destruction of our nation from the inside out. I wish I could tell you that this winning that's happening is going to continue, but I'm afraid there are limits to it, as we just saw with the Supreme Court in a split decision, who confirmed that Donald Trump and the Doge people were definitely going to have to continue with at least some of these promised payments through USAID, with the argument being the money was promised, and in some ways they had contractual obligations to pay people that they'd already made deals with on the promise this money was coming. And so President Donald Trump, and Doge and his delegated authority have the ability to stop future promises. But the promises that were made by the previous administration, unfortunately, according to the Supreme Court, will, at least to some degree, have to be paid out. And that was a split decision, but at least one of the conservative members of the Supreme Court voted for that today. So there's limits, but beyond that, there's going to be a backlash. Tell me what you think in the comments section. Are we looking for another summer of love, a 2020 repeat now in 2025? Will cities burn because we are winning? Are they going to roll over and take their medicine, or are they going to rebel? Is civil war inevitable? Is the TTOR timeline trying to reassert itself? Tell me what you think in the comments section below. I'd like to be optimistic, but at the same time, those people aren't going away. All right. We'll see you next time. And God save our republic.